Hello, Jess, my friend from New York.
Michelle, I love you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being on. I love you just come so Jess-like, calm and soothing. And I'm like at a 10 and you're like, no, I'm at a 2.5. It's all good. And that's just how we roll.
Yeah, well, I just burned some sage for you and, well, for us in my office space. And I knew you were going to come with that many beverages, so I brought you 1 to 3 of options if you are thirsty.
I wish I could be in New York with you now so we could just be drinking.
I know.
Uh, and you're the first person to ever sage our interview. So thank you for that. Let's see if this one like surpasses all of the other 174 episodes
I
prior to
I was
this.
going to say, am I 177? No, 175?
You know what? I can tell you what you are slated for. You're 175.
I love that number.
Oh, good, because that's your number. Why don't you introduce yourself to everyone before we get
Oh
into
my
all the
goodness.
things that you love?
I know. I'm Jess. Some people call me Jessie. Um, I'm a mom. I live in New York City. I'm also a chef by trade and nutritionist. And I work with food as a medium to health. And I try and, make things really simple and make things really less complicated in the kitchen and try and find a portal in which food can be very enjoyable and soft and like almost like an experience through what you put on your plate, how you feed yourself, how you feed your family, how you feed your kids. For me, it's just supposed to be really like a kind, loving experience. And oftentimes I just feel like it can get really complicated really fast and like overwhelming, especially in the world we live in. And I think that it can be really, really down, like just down to earth and downplayed and just like simple. And food is the source and it can be the medicine. And I try and teach that to my clients and to bigger groups through cooking classes and things like this. So yeah, that's who I am today.
I love your videos on Instagram, and you know I do because I comment on every single one. I send you a DM every time you're cooking. You're like, "Oh, good, I'm cooking something. Here comes Michelle." And in my head, because I feel like with two little people who tend to be very picky. Like Catherine thinks that she's suddenly a vegetarian, even though she eats chicken dino nuggets.
Mm-hmm.
She's not a vegetarian, but they like to make it more complicated on me. And so I'm always going, what would Jess do? That's my cooking mantra of how can I make it fresh and delicious. And I get
Aww.
so proud of myself when I do. And then I tell you what I've made.
And often when you say, what would Jess do? Which I love you, you're hilarious. What would she do?
She would take a moment to actually cook real food and not boil ravioli from Costco.
That's actually false. What I do very frequently. See, that's the beauty of it, right? You're like, but that's the whole thing about like, the word isn't even balance. It's just kind of like, how do I approach something and make it easier for mom or whomever is actually preparing and serving? And like, how do I then maybe bring in other things that could be fun or different, diverse in like nutrition or raw and like keep it really simple, right? Because you can do that. You can buy the ravioli and you can also have an array of raw vegetables in the fridge, right? And it's like, if we can do all the things and teach our kids that like you can have all of it and that's okay and you can try things and maybe you won't like this, but maybe you'll like try, like the other day my 4-year-old, well, before he was eating drawing a blank on the name of them, the raw ones.
Oh, like
Yes, I'm
edamame?
sorry, snow peas.
The snow
Yeah, the
peas.
snow peas.
Snow peas.
And he was like, "Mommy, I love these," and I was like, "Yeah, you do." And it's like, I don't know, for me, I'm like,
Yeah, you do.
but they are so good. And then I'm like, why do you think they're so crunchy? And like, I talk about this, like, I feel like a lot with my clients and friends and in these conversations of food, but it's like, how can we make this so fun? Like, even the smallest moments where there's like rushing out the door, I need to get dressed to leave at 9 o'clock. Like, I want a tincture of fun, however, of course, in my life, but in the kitchen with my kids, I feel like there's just going to be such a ripple effect if you can find fun in what we're trying and eating and not the judgment. Just like a tincture of fun and like a little bit of experimenting and just like, I don't know, it can be a place of play. you know?
Yeah. We always have music on, so it is always play in the
100%.
kitchen.
I know my kids are really into reggae right now, and it like really works. You
Oh, I
know?
love it. Mine are into
Yeah.
the Beatles, as you know, and so they are always cranked up with some Queen apparently lately.
Oh, cool. I love
Maybe
that.
some AC/DC mixed in. My kids are very odd individuals. I love them.
No, I mean it's beautiful. Also, I feel like there's a beat. Kids are just like into it. They feel it. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I love that you make it fun because cooking has to be fun. We've recently started they've been helping me more so my daughter than my son, like peeling potatoes, which
Hmm.
scares the shit out of me that she's just gonna peel off her finger, but she's doing very well. So I
Yeah.
think that's also important to incorporate them into it and then making them try it. I don't wanna say making them try, but I am like, you have to try a bite. You don't have to like it, and I have a backup, but you have to try it.
Hmm.
What was growing up with food like for you? I was thinking about this morning as I was doing dishes. I was like, I wonder what Jess was like as a kid growing up. What was your food experience like as a child?
So my experience as a child was robust and like fun and beautiful. And like my mom and my father are both amazing cooks. They split when I was very young. So whether I was living with mom or living with dad, there was always like a very wholesomely whole cooked meal. The oven was always on, and there was always this aroma, as you can like imagine, like warm potatoes. I lived in upstate, so it was there were seasons, and in the winter it was very cold, and like I feel like when the heat's on and the oven is on and there's like that real deep like sensory experience of potatoes and potentially chicken and onions in the oven, we all know what that smells like. I think that imprinted me very well. And I think since I was little, food has always been like a part of the pathway, a part of like the joyful part of life, whether it's in a restaurant or like wanting to cook for friends, even when I was in my teens, and then, upward towards like working in restaurants. But yeah, my dad, my house was kind of in my teenage years was like the place to go and hang. He had a pool. The grill was always on. My dad was always grilling or cooking, or the salad, or like, the salad dressing in the bottle was always out, and there was always fresh tomatoes. Like simple though, like really beautifully simple home cooked meals. And we'd sit around the table, and every single night Seinfeld would be on. And that was very much a slice of like, that was it. There was really no like straying from that. And I don't really remember, we never ate out. I don't know. I feel like upstate there was restaurant, and we ate out at like, there was like one very good Thai food place, but like we very rarely ate out. We ate just all the meals in. And I think seeing my dad always in the kitchen, and like there's a service there. There's a piece of like the service becomes the love, right? And there's also like deeper than that. It's like you're nourishing your family. And my parents weren't my dad wasn't a traditional like working 9 to 5 man. He's a professional gambler, so he was playing poker at night. So he was home during the day
Oh,
often.
I love these tidbits.
Yeah, and and I feel very fortunate for my upbringing and the ability to always have a meal, even when things are tough. Because if you think about a gambler, there's not always like this income that's like consistent. So that was my dad's number one priority. I know that, and still is when we're with each other. But it took a different path when I think as you grow older. I moved to New York City when I was 17 to go to fashion school, and you come to a city that I actually had never really spent that much time in. My parents just trusted that that was what I was going to do, and there was no telling me no. I was going to New York, and I moved in to the dorms in 27th and 7th Avenue, and I was broke. My parents had gave me some money, but like I think when you hit a place where you're a student and you're broke, and it's very cliche, you eat what you can afford, and what you can afford, unfortunately, in this country is potentially poor quality food, but still yummy and addicting and delicious. And in New York City, as you know, like there's delis on every corner. There's also fast food, and you eat to get by, you know, and like it becomes a different experience. So I kind of like lost what I loved and knew, and like ate like a cliche college person, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Pizzas.
yeah, pizza late
That was
night.
my daily lunch night. It was like, the cafeteria's open. Pizza it is.
Totally.
And a salad.
Right. And back in those in 2003, 4, 5, 6, like pizza, you could get 3 slices for $1 and a Diet Coke or a Pepsi or something, all for like $1.50. I mean, you could
Yeah.
cruise with $10 in your pocket. You know what I mean?
For the week.
For the week. Oh my goodness gracious. Oh man, yeah. So I laugh thinking about my experience and how it's just kind of really, there's been a full like gamut of what it's looked like, the ebb and flow of food. And I think, it's funny. I think like what you don't know. And so when you're eating this way, it tastes great. You see your body starting to change. Potentially, like your brain and mind is changing, but I wasn't conscious enough to know that. I was 17, 18, 19, 20 years old doing things that were not serving my body alongside eating poorly. Um, Again, like I think, most college students. And
Mm-hmm.
and it kind of, I think it set the tone for like the next, let's call it 5 to 10 years. Because like once you start like making those habit grooves in your brain, right, it becomes this like, well, that's what I'm going to do. It's cheap, it's easy, it's fast. I'm drinking, I'm kind of partying, I'm living in New York, and you just kind of fall into that. Maybe you're going out to a nice dinner at some point because someone else is paying for it, but like it's not like you're like living this. I don't think in 06, 7, 8 there was the mindfulness that we have today. There was, but it's not as abundant around food, wellness, lifestyle, the mind body connection, and that's okay. But I think that's why we're finding so many people where they are with their gut experience, their skin, their mind, their sleep, their mood. Now there's just so much data that shows the food is actually the connection there, you know?
Yeah, and I need so much freaking help with my food. I tell you this every time. No, I feel like I do, but I think in my head, since I'm also the shopper, I get this like, it doesn't have to be organic.
Mm-hmm.
Why does it cost so much?
Mm-hmm.
And then I do go into, it's probably that college mindset of like, well, I don't need to spend $10 on, whatever vegetable it is.
Mm-hmm.
We can do it, cook something else because it is expensive. And it's really stupid that I'm looking to save money on my food when I should be spending the money on something that's going to nourish my body versus something else.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to get into that mindset. But then how do we cook easily? Like your stuff is so freaking beautiful. And I feel like when I look at it, there's a partial intimidation
Mm-hmm.
and because my stuff never comes out looking that pretty. You don't see my food on Instagram making videos and oohs and ahs.
Michelle, but it's also my job, right?
That's true. That's true. Your shit should look good, right?
Well, and I think that's kind of like, if we're going down the avenue of social media where it can be very influential, it can also be inspiring, and it can also really dim the own light of like your beacon, because you could be like, there's this compare contrast aspect of it, and it's like it gets tricky because then it's like the judgment falls on self. I mean, that can be a plug and play for any situation, not just cooking. So I think I try my utmost hardest to like reveal that this is meant to be full of ease. I'm never going to write a recipe and put it down and share it. That's like this complicated, like French culinary. Like it's just, that's not me. That's not ever how I'm going to cook. And it's not in my audience. I mean, it's a tight, small audience, but it still is like people that want to see things done in a very simple way, mainly with very little steps and intuitively, right? So I think the art piece of it comes because there's that's that's what I do to kind of serve clients or make a dinner, or when I do retreats, it kind of has to be pretty because we eat with our eyes a lot of the time. And also there's that like ocular inspiration, like you see it and you think like, oh, what would Jess do in the kitchen? That's fun. Also, we have a relationship, so there's that really cool connection. But to like look at it through the lens of like, oh my god, my shit never looks that good, like what the fuck am I doing wrong? Not that you're saying that, but I've heard that, like that's the dialogue. You got to remember, like I'm doing it to do that, you know
Right. Mhm.
in the same sense where like, but I also see food through a lens of art. I almost can't turn that off. So even if I am, and again, this isn't like I'm better or you're, it's like even if I'm doing it for my kids or I'm doing it for a quick thing for myself for dinner, like I can't take it off. I just don't know how to turn off the piece where I want to make it look pretty, and not in a shallow way, but just in like, this is my art form. This is my creation. This is what makes me feel good. It's not for anybody else at that point.
Do your kids notice when they eat somewhere else that it might not look as pretty or it looks different?
I don't know. It's a good question.
I'm just curious because like you made blue pancakes this morning or whatever it was, and it was really pretty and cute. And I was like, oh, like I make it, but with food coloring and stuff. And I can imagine that my kids would be like, why do your pancakes look different than what my mom makes? Or why aren't they stacked so beautifully with the syrup coming down?
I mean, the truth is, I wish my kids cared. I wish they noticed. They don't. They're blue. Cool. Yesterday they were green. They're probably going to be white tomorrow. I think they're just so accustomed and just immune to like anything cool that I'm trying to do. And it's like, again, just plays into the narrative of like, I'm literally doing it for me. Like, I want blue freaking pancakes. And also, like, so do a few of my friends who think it's cool. You know what I mean? Like, my kids are, my son, like, helped me make them today. And he was just like, ooh, I love purple. And I'm just like, okay. I love that you love purple.
I bet you they do notice though. I guarantee you they notice. And growing up in 20 years from now, they'll listen to this and be like, yeah, mom, that was so cool. We did
I
notice
love that.
because we went to school and everyone was like, no, I had a bagel. It was boring. You know, I had cereal out of a box. Well, I had purple pancakes. So boom.
And also cereal out of the box. Although my kids don't love cereal as much as I wish they did. No, but you know what is funny actually? You know who notices when my nanny takes my kids to eat? Well, they have lunch before school because my kids only in part time. So the moms or the nannies that are with my nanny, I saw one recently and she was like, "Oh my gosh, your lunch is like it's like a rainbow." And I'm like, I mean, that is kind of like my mantra, like eat the rainbow. I mean, a lot of people, but like it's also I kind of forget that potentially some other parents or whomever like aren't because they don't even who cares? There's not even thinking about the rainbow, and which is totally fine, right? But like it was actually really sweet. This mom, Jesse, do you think you could every time you make the lunch you could send me a picture? And I'm like, oh goodness. I mean, I
Oh,
sure guess, but it also just like it is a bigger picture of like that's a lot of people. That's a lot of moms who it's not even like maybe time is short, but it's not even the awareness or knowledge that like that could be a lunch that you could make probably just as easy as what you're doing, you know?
isn't that funny? Like, I had a mom say to me the other day, not knowing what goes in my kids' lunches when they get a cold lunch, because in California, everything is, we get free lunches, free snacks, but there's a calendar of the meals, and my kids will, the night before we go over it, and they're like, yeah, no, not going to eat it. Cold lunch. So I have to make them a lunch. And I put a note every day that I do their cold lunch. I write them something. And there was a mom who came up to me and was like, you know what parents I hate? Those ones who put notes in their kids' lunches every day. And I went, that's me. I'm a note writing mom. Like literally, I take 30 seconds, I take a post-it, I try to think of something creative for the day, sign off with I love you, their name, a heart, mommy, XOXO.
I know, but how lovely is
30
that?
seconds.
I know.
But I'm like, you hate those parents? Then oh man, she would really hate you.
Well,
Like
why would she hate parents like that? Like it's the sweetest, most loving, most heart gushing, like little pop of like remembering, right?
because to her it takes an extra step in the morning. You know, it's
I think it's bigger than that, but yeah, I think it's
yeah.
also just a level of gushy love, heartwarming play. It's all play, you know.
Yeah.
But listen, like
Well,
she,
I'm not gonna stop, so
no, why would we stop? The world needs more play and love. Hello, look where we're at. Oh man, eat the rainbow. It's not always easy though.
it's not, but we manage and you're doing a wonderful job.
I appreciate that. I am trying. Also, kids were never really like on the docket for me, so now it becomes like this. I always think like lead by example. Like every single time you're acting in front of your kids, or you're like like not even performing, you're just being a parent. You're like, I need to be on my best behavior. Like I'm a rebel at heart. Like I like to curse and like I do things that aren't necessarily like what I want to be my parent or my kids to be. So it's like if I can do one thing, one thing well, or try at least, it's like I'm gonna make those lunches pretty as I can make them. Um,
My
but
kids now say, "Son of a biscuits and gravy." That's what I've changed it up for them. They'll be like, my son of a bitch, and I go, biscuits.
Oh my
And then
God.
Catherine follows up with, and gravy.
I love
So
that.
that's how you get around that one.
Yeah, we're at what the crank, and he said what the hell the other day. He's 4, and I was like, where did you learn that? I'm like, baby, those
Oh,
you
yeah.
can't. That's not what. What do I say? What do I do? Who's got the parenting book to teach me? Like it's just so wild.
I just remind me you're not allowed to say it outside the house because if the principal calls and tells me, even though I have sat down with the principal and it was on something else, and I'm like, so just so you know, I am that parent who cusses. So I'm not a good example. I would just tell you that right from the get-go.
Yeah,
So I won't be surprised if you call me saying that my kid dropped the F-bomb on the playground. He was like, okay, I understand.
acknowledgement is key. Love it. Oh my goodness.
I'm honest to a core. You know that.
I know it's a beautiful thing about you. Truthfully, it is. And you also make it fun and funny and like almost just like lighthearted. I think that's really important, especially being a parent and being a mom.
Oh, I love you.
Love you too.
I adore you. We could just gush. Nobody even knows how we met.
How did we meet?
Oh, I want to share
Can
the
we talk
story.
about first impressions? Because I think that it actually comes into my brain a lot.
Oh yeah.
So you should tell it from your point of
Yeah.
view.
Yeah. So I was in the Puerto Rican airport and I was going to Necker. And there were some familiar faces that I knew. Kara Golden was there. Of course, our host was there, Emma. And then I see this shorter woman that I look at her and I'm like, you're Gabby Bernstein. I know who you are. Like, anyway, who else do we have here? Like, if I know you, cool. And then there's this woman in black tank top, black shorts, black hat, black sunglasses. And I'm like, girl, we are in the airport. What do you need your sunglasses on for? But she was not like a part of it. And then we get on the plane and she literally moves seats because someone is talking Gabby Bernstein's ear off. And even I wanted to move seats, but I was in the last seat, so I couldn't move. But she literally moved seats. I'm like, who is this creature? She is just too cool for, I don't know. She's cool, but who is this person? Still don't know. We get off and we're now on an island outside of Puerto Rico. And I'm still kind of like, okay, so her name is Jess and she sits next to me on this boat. And I even have video because I'm not quite sure who you are. And I don't know if I'm allowed to have you in my video on this little boat ride. So I'm like, oh, nope, scan back on the other side. And then we end up sailing the Atlantic together and becoming the best of friends and having so much time together, spending 48 hours in New York, 24 hours in New York together. And here we are on a podcast.
Well, I
You were the
love
untouchable
some
who
of those
I feel like
details.
now I can touch you. I've touched the untouchable.
Some of those details are really some things I haven't heard before. But you know what's so
Well, I
interesting?
love that you've told me you never wore black. And I'm like, yeah, you do.
Oh man, but isn't it so beautiful, the first impression? But also, more importantly, the reason I was acting the way I was, and it wasn't even acting, I was just being, was because like first off, just to set the tone for people who don't know, we were walking into an experience and no one really knew what to expect. There was like the expectation was like, I mean, there was a spectrum of what could happen. And we're going to an island that Richard Branson owns, and we're going with 40 people who potentially are unknown. Some people had relationships already, some didn't. So I am in this like mindset of like protection because like if I am too outward, and I feel like this is like just an expression of self, like if I'm too outward, then I'm like losing my energy is being like put in so many directions. And it's like, what if I need to like hone it in and like rein it in, but I don't know how because I'm too open. So I was literally cocooning, right? And I'm in all black, so I was trying to be like nobody. I don't know. It was weird. It was almost like I wanted to be invisible. Interesting, but I stuck out, ironically. And and even on that boat ride, I remember sitting. I actually remember you, and I remember Amy, who's now becoming also a very good friend, and like just being like, "Where are we? This is wild." Again, just the trust window for what we were doing is so far open that like we could have been going anywhere. We didn't know what we were going to eat, where we were
True.
going to sleep. We did. I mean, we trusted the fact that like it was going to be okay. We really could have been going anywhere though. By the way, we had to get there by boat, which is also just like another layer of like
For like an
for
hour.
like an hour with they're pouring champagne and the music is blasting, but everyone has these like uniforms on. I mean, it's the whole thing is kind of movie like, if you ask me. And it's just beautiful how, I just kind of wanted to keep that bubble tight and just like my own self, like super introverted, even though I'm not an introvert. And then when we arrived, it was very much this like, I just wanted to like take it all off. Like I wanted to just like take off the black, take off my hat, jump in the water and like be the person that I am and like open up, right? And just like receive. And I think that happened very fast when we landed on the island. But I think it just kind of goes to show like we can form and create any first impression and kind of create this story of who this person is, whether there's somebody and people know them or nobody, and it's like it doesn't really matter. But it's like kind of our
So what
own
was your
narrative.
first impression?
You
haven't shared what was your first, and yeah, you haven't shared that with me.
Well, it all like when we got to, again, setting the tone, we're on this beautiful island, we're in the middle of the Caribbean. Yeah, the Caribbean, right? Yeah. And we're going to sports. So now there's like all these things we can do. And you and I happened to coincidentally arrive at the same area on the beach that was like kite surfing lessons. But we weren't taking lessons yet. We were just going on like we thought a sailing trip, but the sailing trip happened to be on a very small device that was not a sailboat. It was very much a boogie board with a sail. And we weren't going anywhere besides the perimeter of the island. So again, seeing you and Kara, Krista, and the four of us, it was like that immediate, like, it was like when you first get to camp or something, you're just like, oh, these are my friends. Like, great. And I was like, and you were just cracking jokes from the get-go, and you're just clearly like part comedian, just naturally. It's very hardwired in you. If you didn't know that, you're welcome. And it was this gloriously fun, humiliating, comical, life-changing experience. Because, I mean, it's hard to explain what happens there. It's also just a beautiful like trust fall. Because we get on this literally like it was not 10 feet, by the way. We're all like our toes are touching on this small little boogie board.
Yeah.
And there's, attractive young man who is like touring us around the island on this like makeshift sailboat, like not a sailboat.
But who can't reach the sails to change them from where his position is. So I'm not sure how he thought he was going to like run back and forth across said boogie board.
Michelle basically sailed us as the we'll just call her captain around the island, and it was the most fun. Like I just remember laughing so hard, like my belly hurt and like my teeth were like lips were chapped. It was like so like deep, and it was like that moment where we're like, oh, I guess we've arrived, and now we're forever friends.
That was the moment. I love it. The middle of the Atlantic when I was like, well, there could be sharks around here. Cool. We could just catch the wind the wrong direction because somebody did and be lost for like 3 hours. The other boat did. So we did sail. We did good.
Yeah, I guess. And then it was just the history just like started unfolding with us. And then we started training to like learn how to kite surf. And oh man, it was a beautiful week.
I didn't. I drew the line somewhere. I paddleboarded with you though.
Oh, that was a really fun week. I'm so happy to have been a part of that.
Me too. Look at where it's brought us.
I know.
It's been almost a year.
It has, I know.
Not yet a year.
Almost, yeah.
But it feels like it was so long ago.
It kind of does, yeah. I think that's what happens through winter. Time kind of slows.
Yeah, winter. That's what I'll blame it on.
But it was beautiful and so important to take these moments if you have them and you can, and you're fortunate enough to go away and leave your family to create new relationships and perspective, like on all things. Because I think shaking up the system is so important to not only like self, but to motherhood. You know what I mean? And
oh, it absolutely is.
I know.
And I don't do it enough. I know personally I don't.
Yeah, I don't either. And I think that's a conversation I've been having recently about just how can you actually take the time to step away and not like, I feel like we're in a world where we can stack functions so well. They're like, well, we'll make it about work. I mean, you came to New York City for 48 hours from California, which is kind of unheard of. Not really, but it's short. And like,
it was 36.
It was 36 hours, which is a great question.
36 on the ground.
I had this conversation yesterday with a friend. Do you feel that after you do that, were you like jet lagged, or did you feel it was so quick that you were able to just kind of hop back into life?
I was still jet lagged. I was, yeah, there were a couple days where I came back, but you don't have a choice. The same
Right.
thing happened with Necker. That was also 3 hours ahead for a week, but I literally came back from Necker and my kid had a migraine and was puking in the middle of the night. So there was no,
I remember.
let me ease back in. I remember feeling all light and grace, and it was very like this, I'm a different person. I came back, I'm like, nope, I'm a mom. So let's get to it.
Right.
There's no transition at all. It's like a switch that just gets
Right.
flipped.
Which is interesting because it's like when you're having these moments of, call it retreat or vacation or going on a business trip where it's like actually supposed to be really like deeply imprinting and it starts changing like the molecules, it's like there has to be grace to integrate. And if there's not, it's like, so maybe it's not directly after. Okay, I mean life's not perfect and you can't always treat that time, but it's like there has to be moments, micro moments, where you can actually like help yourself download like the experience, the feelings, the emotions. I mean, there was a deep emotional like the multiple moments post Necker. I think for everybody. I mean, we're all on that WhatsApp thread, and there was even the we left a day early, but drawing a blank on her name, but she gave like a small little course in like how to integrate. Remember at the end of
Yeah.
Necker?
Mhm.
And that happens
Yeah.
in a lot of retreats because you do kind of, it's interesting how easy we can drop in. And once we drop in, we're there. And it's like, we didn't think about it. Like some people were taking photos, but it wasn't like that. It was very private. It was very much like we kind of, I think at the end of the day, ironically want to be away from our phones as much as it's really cool to share shit. But like the sharing shit only goes so far. It's like, oh no, I want to actually deepen my personal experience. And that technology is going to like lessen that. Right. And so it's like, even think
Yeah.
about that, like that spectrum of having no phone really, checking in kind of slightly, but not really, because we're far. So you kind of trust the fact that everything is good at home. And we've also worked hard enough to leave our families to be able to do something like this. You have to lean into the fact that like you're good. And then it's like to come out of that and to come back to the mainland, which is New York, or USA. Most of us, actually half of us probably, because everyone is from Australia for the most part. Maybe less than half we were Americans, right? But like to not give
I think less
yourself
than half.
that
Yeah.
time, again, fill in the blank to going anywhere. It's like it makes it even. It's like, oh yeah, that other time, that like bumper time, like that period where you're just like, I need to like be with myself and my thoughts and my journal or a friend and a coffee. It's like to jump back in it to migraines and kids and school and the not even not mundane, but it's like very structured lifestyle that's routine and busy and hectic. It's tricky. It's tricky for.
I found that I journaled a lot while we were in Necker,
I
and
remember
so
you were
I
always
will
on your
reflect
journal.
back to it.
I'm not
Was I
laughing.
really?
I'm not. No, I mean, but in a beautiful way. You were journaling a lot, but you're a writer, so I mean, you were also writing a book.
Well, and
Well, finishing.
I wrote the book. Thank you. Yes. I
This
am,
is your own
but
plug.
I will go back to those words and like who it was. I remember writing down, who did I want to connect with and stay connected with?
Mm.
You were at the top of the list.
Yeah.
You trumped them all. But, it brings back those feelings of what I was feeling at that moment, and so I can relive them again, even during all of the structure and this is what we're doing, everyday life too. And I think that's important too, to be able to go back to that,
Mm.
even when you're not technically physically there.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, journaling is so impactful. It's so impactful, and I think we forget to do it.
I used to do it for many, many years, honestly, and I threw all of them out after, like, college. I threw a ton of journals out, and it
Really?
wasn't until last year when I did a book launch for a client who had a compilation of her journals. There's, like, 800 of them over the years, and I was like, "Oh, I should get back into journaling," and that was around the Necker time, so that's why you saw me with my journal,
Oh my goodness.
because I was starting that path again.
That would be a cool episode of you just reading your journal entries.
Oh, hell no.
I love that. I know it's so vulnerable, but it's so beautiful. Also, like,
My client keeps hers in a safe.
oh my goodness, that is
Yeah,
real stuff.
that's hardcore.
Yeah, I
Mine's
know.
just out in the living room.
Noted. Oh my goodness, I know. I know. Listen, I think that's too. Like I started doing retreats before kids, hosting them, feeding people, serving, experiencing like nutrition from like a very intimate standpoint and just like perspective of a safe place and a cool home and a place where you can kind of just come and visit for a few days and you get to go back. I was doing them at my farm, which is 2 hours away from the city, so it was like very doable for everybody. And I think the reason why it was so impactful to like want to do more. I mean, first off, people loved it. We could fill them in 2 days; it would be full, and like the amount of feedback was like, when are you going to do another one? When are you going? Because it's like people are yearning for that, especially like post pandemic, right? Like there's like this connection piece, not only with people but with self, that I feel like where there is so much noise, static, things to do. A lot of us are now parents. It's just like at no point does it stop. At no point are you just able to. I mean, yeah, sure, we can take a day. We could take a day. We could take our time. I listened to your kind of latest podcast about like saying yes, but also like creating your own time and space for yourself and how important that is to not only your family, but for yourself as like you being the anchor and like the foundation to all. And it's like creating those little mini retreats. I keep saying retreat, but some people are triggered by that word. It's like, it's not like the retreat doesn't heal all, but I think a retreat actually is part of the medicine to like give to yourself time, space, and like energy to refuel. And so it's interesting how I've been doing now retreats for like 5 years, and it's like to see people, they're so gravitated towards coming and being, and again, being able to drop in so deeply. So I don't know, it would be, I had this, again, conversation yesterday with a friend about like doing 2-day retreats and doing things where it's not this intensive, but it's an immersive where you can like, you actually are able to kind of turn it down, the world itself, if you had like a volume frequency, and like, kind of just like be with people who are also trying to do the same ish thing, where it comes to like your work or being a mother or just self care. And like, it's like I just always see like a tank, like the gas tank, like just kind of filling it a little bit and then being able to like enter back into your world knowing that like your tank is semi full. And I don't know, I feel like we can do that with like a collection of people or with community, right?
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be long. I think
No,
the thought of, like, getting away to a hotel for one night, like, that's a big deal. I mean, I got to spend 2
really
nights
big
in a
deal.
hotel, and I was like, "Oh, what am I gonna do with myself?" You know?
Totally.
But that's exactly what we need, is that space and that time that doesn't have to be a lot to
No.
recharge, but just enough to find that calm and grace.
Yeah, and I think it can even be simplified as like going to dinner with girlfriends or going to a brunch with girlfriends, because it's like just it's almost like having a container where it's not like you're gossiping, you're like talking shit or anything. You're literally just like being with people who are experiencing something similar in life, where you can kind of just like all bounce energy around each other and like be in this like empathetic space. And social media is cool because you're like able to like see other people, what they're doing and how they're coping and like, their techniques, but it's like people who you really love and there's like a heart connection, and making time and space to do that, whether it's once a week, maybe that's too much to ask, but once every 2 weeks, something like that. Like, I think it's really, really important to keep connection where you feel juicy with somebody or a group of people really high on the priority list, because we can't go away every month.
I had coffee with a girlfriend on Saturday, and we've been friends for years, but, like, couple friends. And when my husband and kids over the summer went to Texas and I couldn't fly, so I was at home, she had called me and she's like, "Do you wanna go out for coffee?" So we went out for coffee, and it was like 3 hours of coffee, and we walked away going, "Oh my gosh, why have we never done
I
this before?"
know.
That was in August, and we just did it again for the first time, though, last weekend. And again, we're like, "Why aren't we doing this more often?" So I'm like, "We should start a book club with wine." So now we're gonna try to go once a month. And I'm like, "Why not? Like, we're reading books, we should be able to talk about it. Let's have a glass of wine. We deserve this
100%.
1 night a week." And we're not talking a night, we're talking, like, a couple hours a month. Whoop-de-doo.
Totally. I mean, absolutely. The truth is too, like, I think again, post pandemic, we've come up with these new ideas, like how you can join a group and be on Zoom. And there's still, I mean, I've joined now too. One of them I'm in with my friend Stephanie, who's this incredible host, and it's called the Lioness Den. And it's very much about like reclaiming your sexuality. And it's 12 women, and we meet every Thursday. And it's a 6 week like club, but it was open to anybody. Anybody could join it, you know. But like there's power and empowerment in being in a container with people who are trying to level up, experience new things, tap into things that potentially you haven't in a long time, i.e., because of motherhood or marriage or whatever, trauma. And so it's really interesting how we've kind of shifted into this like new wave of community. And I find frequently people, the portal of Instagram is kind of the way of connection for me. It's like, so people kind of DM you, I'm sure you know, and they're like, the sharing piece on Instagram is interesting because you're like, I never would want people to feel left out or like there's like a brag happening. So it's like a weird thing for me. It's like finding that fine line and balance between like, you want to share something, but you also don't want it to be like, I'm so cool, look at me. And like, I don't know, it's weird. But point is, it's like people always ask like, hey, how do I get included in that? Or how do I join? So it's like sharing in that way of like, oh my God, of course I'm not sharing some exclusive membership that took like years to be a part of. No, you literally just have to sign up. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the cool piece about social, because there is so much sharing and there is so much opportunity to be a part of something that's greater and expansive. If we're talking about just like wanting to feel good, learn something, and really kind of like put yourself in a vulnerable place of expanding. And I find it to be really cool. And that's like for the people, myself included, yourself included, that like I can't always find a night to go out and spend money, you know? So it's like it's really interesting how we can live in this new world.
Do you find that some will make excuses as to why they can't do it? And not the I can't find time because, we can't go out and spend money all the time, but like to find these connections. I feel like there are some who will make up an excuse of like, oh, they don't exist. They're not out there. Or, I don't have time to go and, read a book or something like that. I feel like there's those kinds of people, and then there's others who are like, "Oh, I'm gonna do all the doggone things."
Right. And I really believe, because I'm experiencing that with somebody I know very personally, I believe that like the being in the pandemic and being that mindset really kind of set some personalities, potentially like introverted people who actually like to stay home already, kind of in this cocoon sense where it's like almost safer. And like it's not lazy. It's just like, well, I would rather just stay home and scroll, or rather stay home and watch a movie or a show or binge or whatever. And I think it's like it's almost like once you actually go out and experience something, and it's like and really experience the power of like community and connection, it sparks that interest in like, oh wait, I want more of that. But it's like, again, to that point of like, you don't know what you don't know, and you definitely don't know what you don't feel. So like if you haven't had that in a long time, and you're kind of just living these old like mindset pattern ways of like, I'm good home, I don't want to go out. No one's asking you to go out and rage and like binge. It's just like, no, we can like
Yeah,
go
come
out
on.
and
I'm over 40.
right,
Nobody's
like,
raging or binging.
but right. So it's like it doesn't have to be exhausting. It actually be like exhilarating and fulfilling. But I don't think
Yeah.
I think that like if you don't do that kind of consistently, there's like it's really easy to just say no. And if you say no, it's of course powerful in yourself. I mean, only you know you. But like if the goal is to be like lit up and feel great and also be inspired by others, then I think the key is to expand with others who are doing that and say yes here and there, you know?
Well, these are good quotes.
Oh my
These are going
goodness.
on graphics. I love it. I love it. You have retreats coming up. Tell everybody where they can sign up because they're all inclusive
Of
for the
course.
people. They're not for you got to pay for it, people.
I wish that maybe one day they'll be free. Yeah, so I have a retreat in June. It's in Vermont, so on the East Coast. Beautiful, amazing Vermont. Summertime there is magical. It's like at the top of a mountain in this gorgeous lodge that my friends built and like structured, and it's just really, really, really special. Cold plunge and saunas and me serving you food 3 times a day, and nutrition chats and Q&As and yoga and meditation, and just a container in which you're safe and you're taken care of and nourished on every level. That's the first week of June. And I'm currently building out a space on my farm in upstate New York to have retreats very frequently, which is really exciting.
But not in my space, right? Because I do have my own yurt That
Yeah,
is
you have.
reserved for
We'll,
me.
when we need the yurt, we'll have to kick you out. But until then, no, that's just
You'll have to rent it from me.
but no, retreats are kind of popping up all the time now. But my one that is like happening right now is June, and then this fall there'll be a bunch more. But yeah, it's there's space and place to kind of look forward to going, and then when you arrive, it's just as wonderful as it seems like it could be, and that's the beauty of kind of being on retreat. It's awesome. I love
It's
it.
the beauty of you.
It's the beauty of you.
No. What's your website and where
Oh
can they
yeah.
find you on Instagram so they can look at your pretty food?
My website is organicearthkitchen.com and my Instagram handle is j.krux, Crux, my last name. And I'm not on Facebook, and those are the two ways to connect. Because you know what? Less is more for me.
I love it. I
I
love
love
it.
you.
Thank you so much, friend.
Love you, friends. Thanks for having me.
Love you.